My name is Lillian, and if you'd told me a few years ago that my life would flip upside down after one party, I'd have laughed. But that's exactly what happened the night I met Jack at my college graduation party. I was there with friends, just trying to celebrate our freedom from exams and papers, not expecting my entire future to show up. Hey, Lillian, you gotta meet this guy. My friend Liz pulled up my arm, her eyes twinkling with something I couldn't quite place. Who is it? I asked, scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. Just a friend of Tom's. He's seen your photos and won't shut up about meeting you, she said as she dragged me through the crowd. We stopped in front of a tall guy with a cheeky grin. Lillian, meet Jack. Jack, this is the girl I was telling you about. Jack's smile didn't falter. Heard a lot about you. All good things, I promise, he said, offering me a hand that felt sure and warm. Something about his upfront manner made me laugh. We chatted more, the conversation easy, flowing naturally. Jack was a manager at a local restaurant, a family business he was proud of. He listened intently, his eyes not wandering off like most would in such settings. By the end of the night, he'd asked me out officially. I said yes without a second thought. Our whirlwind romance was the kind you read about in a rushed summer novel. Within months, we were talking about forever. It was fast, sure, but when you just know. At least, that's how I felt with Jack. Marry me. Let's not wait. What's the point? Jack had said one evening, the sunset casting warm glows over his face. Okay, yes, let's do it, I answered, the simplicity of the moment wrapping around us like a promise. But if I'd thought my spontaneous decision would lead to a fairy tale, reality was ready to wake me up. And it did, right when I met his mother, Susan, for the first time. We arranged to have dinner at their family restaurant, where the clash began. Susan was a stern woman, her hair pulled back tightly, her eyes scanning me like I was a page in a particularly difficult contract. So, Lillian, Jack tells us you're eager to start a family, she said, not as a question, but as an accusation. Yes, we've talked about kids. I've always wanted a big family, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady under her scrutinizing gaze. And you think you're up to it? Bearing healthy children? Her words were as sharp as knives, each one aimed carefully to cut. I bit my tongue to keep from snapping back. Instead, I forced a smile. I understand the concern, but I assure you, I'm more than capable of contributing to the family, in all ways. The dinner passed with heavy air and harder words. Jack was quiet, his usual vibrant self dimmed by his mother's overbearing presence. I left feeling not just evaluated, but reduced to a mere function in their family plan. Starting a new job is tough, but when that job is at your in-law's family restaurant and your boss is your mother-in-law, it's a whole different ballgame. From my first day, Susan made it clear I was there to work, not to be pampered, because I was the boss's son's wife. I showed up early, dressed in the uniform that was a bit too big and smelled faintly of fry oil from previous wearers. Susan was already there, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning the restaurant like a hawk. You're early, good. We start you off with cleaning. Every good employee knows the place from scrubbed toilets to polished silver, she declared without a greeting. I nodded, taking the bucket and cloth she shoved into my hands. Where should I start? Bathrooms, then move to the dining area. After that, help in the kitchen. We'll see if you can handle simple tasks before we put you anywhere near customers, Susan instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. Lunch rush brought a new kind of chaos. Susan stationed me at the dish station, a clear view of the entire operation, but none of the glory. Jack came in to check on the front, barely acknowledging my presence as he discussed orders with the chefs. Hey, babe, need any help? I managed to catch him during a brief lull. Jack glanced at his mother, then back at me. Keep at it. You're doing fine. Fine doesn't feel quite right from here. I shot back, a little stunned by his dismissiveness. Jack's face tightened, a look I was coming to know meant he was stuck between me and his mother. She thinks it's good for everyone to start at the bottom. Prove yourself, and she'll ease up. Promise." The promise felt hollow as I watched him walk away, back to laughing and chatting easily with the other staff. Meanwhile, I was left with prune hands and a sour taste in my mouth, wondering how long this proving myself would take. One particularly busy evening, as I was setting up for a big party, Susan cornered me in the pantry. "Lillian, the napkins are folded wrong. Do them again. And make sure the table settings are perfect. Our reputation is not up for debate because you can't follow simple instructions." I clenched my jaw, refolding the napkins. "I did them exactly as you showed me." Susan snatched one up, refolding it with sharp, practiced flicks. "Like this. Pay attention. I won't have my son married to someone who can't manage basic tasks." Her words stung, and I fought back the urge to snap. Instead, I focused on the napkins, each fold a reminder that I was more than she saw. It was just another hectic lunch rush at the restaurant when it hit me, a wave of dizziness so strong I had to grip the edge of the kitchen counter to keep from falling. "I need a minute," I muttered to no one in particular, easing myself into the back room where the noise dulled to a dull roar. Once I was sure I wouldn't just keel over, I grabbed my purse and headed to Jack, who was busy at the cash register. "Jack, I'm not feeling right. Can I go home?" He looked up, concern immediately crinkling his brow. "Yeah, of course. Take it easy, okay? Want me to come with?" I shook my head. "I'll be fine. Just need to rest." At home, the quiet was a relief, but my mind raced. This wasn't just fatigue or stress. On a hunch, I found an old pregnancy test in the bathroom cabinet. Waiting for the result, my heart pounded not just with hope, but a flicker of fear. Positive. The word seemed to leap out at me. I was pregnant. I couldn't wait to tell Jack. When he came home, his face lit up like the 4th of July. "Really? That's incredible, Lil." His excitement was a bomb, making everything feel just right. But the good news quickly turned my life at the restaurant upside down. Susan, ever the overseer, took the pregnancy as her new project. My workload was cut down, which I appreciated, but that came with her scrutinizing every bite I ate. "No soda, Lillian. Here, have some water. You need to stay hydrated for the baby," she would chide, pushing a glass towards me as if I were a child. She even tagged along to my antenatal checkups. Standing next to the doctor like she was part of the medical team, she'd ask, "Is she eating right? Are the baby's measurements normal?" The doctor, used to nervous grandparents, reassured her, but Susan's vigilance only intensified. "We just need to be sure everything is perfect," she'd say, making me feel less like a soon-to-be mom and more like a walking incubator. Even Jack started echoing his mother, his words and ways morphing into a version of Susan. "Mom's right, you know. We just want what's best for the baby," he'd tell me when I expressed frustration. When our son was born, I thought maybe things would get better, that Susan and Jack's fixation would ease up now that the baby was here, healthy and perfect. But it only shifted gears. They doted on him to an extreme, hanging on his every gurgle and fuss, while I was nudged to the side, my role seemingly fulfilled. As they spoiled him with endless toys and attention, I tried to set boundaries, only to be overridden. "He's our heir, Lillian. He deserves the best." Jack would dismiss my concerns, parroting his mother's justifications. Feeling increasingly isolated, I poured myself back into work at the restaurant, where Susan's grip seemed to tighten. "Good, now that you've had the baby, you can focus here again. We need all hands on deck," she told me, as if my maternity leave was just a brief hiatus. It hurt, feeling reduced to just a role I could play in their plans, mother to the heir, worker in the family business. But I swallowed the pain, focusing on my son, determined to give him the love and balance his father and grandmother seemed to forget. The joy of finding out I was pregnant again was unlike the first time. This time, both Jack and Susan were equally thrilled, hoping for another heir who could one day help run the family restaurant. Everything felt like it was falling into place. "Ethan's going to be a big brother," Jack said, smiling as he watched Ethan play. "He'll have someone to teach all his tricks to." Susan was more practical, but no less excited. Another strong boy in the family would be perfect. Let's hope for a smooth pregnancy. Things changed when my second son, Jamie, was born. He was a large baby, robust and seemingly healthy, but as months passed, it was clear he wasn't developing like Ethan had. He was slower to reach milestones such as talking and walking. Concerned, I took him to see several specialists. After numerous tests and consultations, the diagnosis was clear: Jamie had developmental delays. The specialists were optimistic, though. With regular therapy and support, Jamie can still lead a normal life, one of them assured me. He's not less, just different, and he needs your support. I clung to that hope, but Jack and Susan reacted differently. This doesn't make sense, Jack muttered after one appointment. He doesn't even look like Ethan did at that age. Susan was more blunt, her words cutting deeply. Are you sure he's even Jack's son? He doesn't look like anyone in our family. I was stunned. What are you saying, Susan? Of course, he's Jack's. How can you even suggest such a thing? Their skepticism grew into something uglier. Jack's warmth toward Jamie cooled, and Susan outright suggested we minimize spending on Jamie's therapies. Why waste money on something that's not even certain? He's not going to be what we hoped, she said coldly one evening as we discussed finances. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He's your grandson, I countered, my voice shaky with anger. He needs us, and I'm not going to let him down. Susan's response was even more shocking. Maybe it would be best if he were placed in a facility that can handle his kind. I felt as though she had slapped me. That's not an option. He's my son, our son, and he stays with his family. Despite the lack of support, I devoted myself to Jamie's development, spending every penny I could save on therapies and special classes. It was exhausting and expensive, but watching Jamie make progress, no matter how small, was worth every sacrifice. Ethan, bless his heart, became Jamie's protector and biggest cheerleader. Look, Jamie can almost write his name. Ethan would probably show off Jamie's scribbles to anyone who would look. He's doing great, thanks to you helping him so much, I would tell Ethan, grateful for his maturity and kindness, qualities that seemed scarce in our home. As years slipped by, Oliver's journey with his specialists began to bear fruit. His intellect nearly caught up with his peers, a milestone that filled my heart with pride. Physically, he was a powerhouse, his strength eclipsing the more delicate build of his older brother, Ethan, who had since moved to college in another city. Keep up the good work, bro, Ethan had told Oliver, hugging him tightly before he left. Hit those books hard, just like I did. Oliver took his brother's words to heart, balancing his studies diligently. However, it wasn't just the books that caught Oliver's attention, but the allure of the baseball field. His physical prowess hadn't gone unnoticed. The high school baseball coach saw him during gym class and immediately saw potential. You've got a strong arm there, Oliver. Ever thought of playing baseball seriously? He had asked, an encouraging smile on his face. I remember feeling a surge of hope when Oliver shared the news. Sports could be another piece of his rehabilitation, a way to build confidence, teamwork skills, and physical health. However, when Jack learned of this, his reaction was as cold as a winter squall. Baseball? That's the last thing he needs. He's going to work in the restaurant. We need a maintenance worker. That's his future, not playing some pointless game, he declared one evening after dinner, his tone brooking no argument. Susan, ever his echo, added her own harsh words. And he's hardly got the brains for sports. He needs to focus on simple, practical work. It's all he's suited for. But Oliver's crushed look that evening settled it for me. I wasn't going to let Jack's or Susan's narrow views stifle my son's potential. I met with the coach the next day, explaining the situation. I want Oliver to play. He needs this. Can we keep it just between us? Coach Thompson nodded, understanding flashing in his eyes. We'll make it work. He can come to the early morning sessions before school, and I'll keep him off the game roster for now. Let's just get him playing, get him involved. So, we started our little conspiracy. I bought Oliver a uniform, hiding it in an old backpack I found in the attic. "You're doing something good, Mom. Thanks for standing up for me," Oliver whispered one morning as he geared up for his first secret practice. Oliver thrived. With each practice, I saw more of the joy that sports brought him, how it transformed him, how his teammates accepted and cheered for him, how he laughed and high-fived after a good play. It was a world apart from the stifling air of the restaurant, a breath of fresh freedom that Oliver deserved. The day everything fell apart started just like any other at the restaurant. I was in the front, dealing with the lunchtime rush, when I realized we were low on napkins. Heading to the back room to grab another pack, I stumbled upon a scene that stopped me dead in my tracks. There was Oliver, struggling under the weight of a beer keg, his face red with effort. Jack was there, overseeing the work with a cold detachment that made my blood boil. "Oliver, put that down right now," I screamed, my heart pounding with fear and anger. Jack turned to me, annoyance flickering across his face. "He's fine, Lillian. He needs to learn what real work is." "Real work? He's just a kid, Jack. And those kegs are way too heavy for him." I shot back, rushing over to help Oliver set the keg down safely. Jack scoffed, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "He's strong, stronger than he is smart. That's all he's good for, manual labor." His words sliced through me, but before I could respond, he added, "Besides, it's not like he's my own son. For all I know, you had him with someone else." I stared at him, stunned into silence for a moment. "What did you just say?" My voice was low, dangerous. "You heard me. No ancestors of mine would be as dumb as him," Jack sneered, turning back to oversee the rest of the unloading. Tears of rage blurred my vision, but I wiped them away quickly. "After school, Oliver is going to college, just like Ethan. He's your son, Jack, and he deserves your support, not your insults." At that moment, Susan walked in, her timing as impeccable as ever. Catching the tail end of our conversation, she laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "College? Him? Don't be stupid, Lillian. He's retarded. All he's good for is carrying kegs of beer." I left them in the storeroom, their laughter echoing in my ears as I drove straight to the clinic to request the DNA test results I'd secretly had done weeks ago, unable to bear the gnawing doubt Jack had planted. When I returned with the envelope, my hands trembled as I handed it to Jack. "Read it," I demanded. His smugness faltered as he tore it open, his eyes scanning the contents. His face went white as he read the conclusion: Oliver was indeed his biological son. Susan peered over his shoulder, her face contorting with disbelief. "This doesn't change anything. There's no stupidity in our family. He's not going to college." Jack's response was cruel, dismissive. "He's not getting a dime from me for college. He's more used to us here." Something inside me broke then. I couldn't bear the thought of my son suffering any more under their disdain. "I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce," I said, the words tasting of freedom and fear. Jack's reply was cold, immediate. "Fine. Pack your things and get out of my house." Packing was a blur, every folded shirt and stuffed toy a nail in the coffin of my marriage. As we drove away, the weight of years of disdain and struggle seemed to lift slightly. We arrived in the city where Ethan was at college. He had rented a small apartment off campus, and when I called him about our situation, he didn't hesitate. "Stay with me, Mom. There's not a lot of space, but we'll make it work." Seeing Ethan again lifted our spirits. He opened the door, and pulling us both into a hug, he said, "Whatever you need, I'm here." Job hunting was next. I pounded the pavement, handed out resumes, and finally landed a job at a local restaurant. It wasn't anything fancy, but the owner, Mike, was understanding and supportive. "I heard about your situation, Lillian. You start whenever you're ready," he told me on my first day. Oliver started at a new school and joined the baseball team immediately. Watching him put on his new uniform, I felt a swell of pride. He was smiling again, his confidence returning. Life had settled into a new, happier rhythm. Oliver was growing into a fine young man, excelling in school and on the baseball field. His dedication and natural talent eventually caught the eyes of scouts, and by the time he graduated from high school, he had an offer that would change his life forever. He came home one afternoon, a broad smile plastered across his face, waving a letter in the air. "Mom, you won't believe it," he exclaimed, barely able to keep still. "What is it, honey?" I asked, wiping my hands on a kitchen towel as I turned from the stove. "I got it, Mom. The contract from the Phoenix Bats, remember, the big league baseball team? They want me to join them." His eyes sparkled with excitement and disbelief. I felt a rush of emotions, from joy to overwhelming pride. "Oh, Oliver, that's wonderful. I knew you could do it." I pulled him into a tight hug, feeling his heart racing with excitement. "Yeah, they want me to start training with them next month. I'll be traveling a lot, to different cities, playing against the best of the best," he explained, his voice tinged with a nervous energy. As Oliver traveled and competed, I watched every game I could on TV, often alone in the quiet of the living room after a long day at the restaurant. Each game he played was a testament to his resilience and determination. Meanwhile, Ethan was carving out his own path with remarkable success. After graduating from college with honors, he landed a job at a leading mobile application company. Within a year, he was leading projects and making a name for himself in the tech industry. As for me, life had taken a turn for the better in more ways than one. I continued to work at the restaurant where Mike, my boss, had been a constant source of support and kindness. Over time, our relationship grew into something deeper. We married quietly in a small ceremony attended by Ethan, Oliver, and a few close friends. "Lillian, you've made me the happiest man," Mike said during our wedding, his eyes shining with love and sincerity. Under Mike's encouragement, I took on more responsibilities at the restaurant, eventually becoming the manager. My days were long and often challenging, but fulfilling. I had a purpose, a supportive family, and a partner who stood by me. The day was filled with excitement and a bit of nervous energy. My youngest son, Oliver, had called weeks ago to tell us his baseball team was playing right here in our city. "You have to come, Mom. It's a big game," he had said, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm. Mike, Ethan, and I arrived at the stadium, the stands buzzing with anticipation. We found our seats just as the game was starting, and the energy from the crowd was electric. Oliver was on fire that day, his pitches clean and strong. The game was tight, but in the end, Oliver's team clinched the win thanks to his record-breaking throw. It was the strongest throw in the history of the team, and the crowd went wild, standing and cheering as Oliver was congratulated by his teammates and coaches. As the applause continued, a disturbance at the edge of the field caught everyone's attention. An elderly bald man and an older woman made their way onto the field, the former waving some papers in the air. The camera panned to them, their images appearing on the big screen. It was Jack and Susan. "That's our boy, our blood," Jack shouted as he tried to reach Oliver. Oliver stopped and stared at them, then took a step back as Jack reached out to hug him. Oliver's voice was firm and carried over the microphone. "No, you are not my dad. My family is my mom, my brother, and Mike, whom I love." The audience burst into applause, supporting Oliver's stand. Susan, never one to give up easily, started yelling, "We want your money. You owe us." Oliver shook his head, resolute. "I owe you nothing. You were never there for me when I needed you." Security quickly intervened, escorting Jack and Susan off the field while the crowd cheered Oliver's bravery and honesty. As we prepared to leave the stadium, Jack and Susan, having been ejected, were waiting by the gate. "The restaurant's gone under. We need help, Lillian," Jack pleaded, desperation in his voice. "No, Jack. It's over. You made your choices," I replied, feeling Ethan's hand squeeze my shoulder in support. Jack's face turned red with anger, and he stepped towards me, but Mike stepped in front of me protectively. "You need to leave and stay out of their lives," he said firmly. Jack hesitated, glanced at the security nearby, and finally backed down. Susan, defeated, followed him. As we walked away, Ethan hugged me tight. "You okay, Mom?" "Yes, honey, I'm fine," I assured him, taking a moment to look back at Oliver, who was signing autographs for young fans, his smile bright and free. "And I realized that I'm the happy person